Namaste and welcome. The title for today is The Light of the Sun and the Moon. But before we begin, I'll offer my obeisances to my spiritual master, Jagat Guru Siddha Swarupananda. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsariti Namane Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adwaita Gadadha Shri Vasudev Gobhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So in the 80s, in fact for the whole of the 80s, it was not uncommon to go out to your mailbox, and this is whether you lived in Australia, New Zealand, America, Europe, go out to your mailbox and there would be a little mini comic book there in your mailbox. And these were produced by a religious organisation and distributed freely. And I kept some of them. Here's one of them. Like I said, mini. And inside, it was all done as a comic. Now, my spiritual master, Jagat Guru, in the 80s, a couple of times he mentioned these little booklets in some talks, and he was mainly referring to that a lot of them would have these drawings in them of God. And they would either draw God, he was always huge and everybody was very tiny, and they would either draw God as being completely faceless, which is quite scary, or he would look like this really terrifying judge who's pointing down at the little people and, you know, passing judgment on them. And this was portrayed as God's pastimes. So fortunately, I had already been reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Krishna stories, and how fortunate are we to hear about Krishna in Vrindavan, and how unfortunate that people are only left with this portrayal, and it's made up because it's not true, this portrayal of God as being this really severe judge. So over the years, I've read a lot of beautiful verses from the yoga texts. But unfortunately, most of them have sunk down, disappeared into the blackness of my memory banks. And my memory banks seem to be made up of like 3 layers. This is just me, I don't know about you. 3 layers. There's a kind of a shallow top layer where I can easily access memories and verses that I've read and descriptions. And then there's an increasing grey layer where I can, you know, with a little bit of effort, pull them up. And then there's the ever-increasing black layer where things just disappear into there, that's it. So in the grey layers of my memory banks, I can pull up, you know, you go to Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 and there's descriptions of the soul. You know, the soul can never be burnt by fire, withered by the wind, you know, things like that. Okay, you can pull those up, that's pretty easy. Chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita, if one offers me with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower. Yeah, okay, there. But there's a lot that's in the blackness. But there is one particular, it's not even a verse, one particular sentence that I read in the Srimad Bhagavatam many years ago, and it has stayed for some reason or other. I think it's because it really affected me when I read it. It stayed up there with a torch is shining in there on those memories. It's from the Srimad Bhagavatam 9:25-65. Whoever sees Lord Krishna sees a festival. That simple little sentence in the Bhagavatam. And in this sentence, it contains this festival of happiness between Krishna and his friends. So wonderful, so wonderful. So for me, that's stayed there. So for today's class, I'm going to look at some verses that are in the 7th and 10th canto of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is comparing himself to a lot of things that we are sort of familiar with in this world. For example, a tree. He compares himself that he is great, like the greatest tree on this planet is the banyan tree. It's not those big redwood trees that would assume in the forest in America. A banyan tree is quite magnificent. And I've seen a documentary where scientists discovered that there's one banyan tree growing in a forest. It was actually growing for a whole acre. It was the one banyan tree, not all individual banyan trees. It was one banyan tree, boom, 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 springing up all over the place. So it really is magnificent, the banyan tree. And it's actually considered quite an auspicious tree. So Krishna is saying of the trees, I am the banyan tree. And the reason I chose these verses from chapter 7 and chapter 9 is because I remember in 1975, I was reading a Back to Godhead magazine because they would come out every month. It was always very exciting. And so I opened up the Back to Godhead magazine, and there they had, visually, they had a lot of verses from 7 and 10 of Krishna speaking, and they had pictures to go with it. And it really stuck in my memory bank. So it's still there in the grey area. Even though it was 1975, it hasn't sunk yet to the black areas. So I thought that might be interesting for all you guys. It might work for you guys too, to visually present some of these things that Krishna is saying. And if you're homeschooling, this is a great way to introduce your children to some of the things that Krishna is saying. Do it visually with them as well. And they might be like me and it doesn't sink down into the black areas. So let's begin now with some of these wonderful verses of Krishna speaking. Krishna says, I am the light of the sun and the moon. So everybody, we always welcome the rising sun in the morning. It chases away any fears we had during the night. And we welcome the light of the full moon, because it chases away the darkness of the night. So Krishna, he chases away all our fears, just like he did for the residents of Vrindavan when the demons came there. Krishna says, I am the ability in man. Whenever you see a person accomplish anything, even yourself, when you accomplish something, think of this quote. So whether somebody is designing a building, winning a race, arranging flowers in a vase, any abilities that we have, we know that Krishna is the source. It's very good for our false ego, that one, isn't it? This is a very famous one that probably sits not even in the grey area for most people, where Krishna says, I am the taste of water. Nobody likes to drink dirty water, but they like pure, clean water because it refreshes us, especially when we're very thirsty. Similarly, Krishna is our refuge from the murky material world. So you can think of that every time you have a glass of water. Krishna says, I am the original fragrance of the earth. When we go maybe out walking or just go into the garden and we smell the green leafy forests or a clean river or the salty ocean spray, we can remember that Krishna says that he is the original fragrance of the earth. Krishna says, I am the strength of the strong. So when we see a strong person or a strong elephant or an ant carrying a load that is heavier than his own body weight, we can remember that Krishna says, I am the strength of the strong. So he is the source of everything material and spiritual. Of bodies of water, I am the ocean. The ocean is the largest, deepest body of water, but it represents just an infinitesimal tiny drop of Krishna's greatness. Of immovable things, I am the Himalayas. This is a wonderful quote from Krishna. So the Himalayas are the greatest mountain ranges in this world. And there are more than 50 mountains covering over 2,500 kilometers. Not just one mountain, it's a huge number of mountains. And they are certainly immovable. But nobody, not even the most empowered yogi or a demigod, can move Krishna if he doesn't want to be moved. See, even little boy Krishna, they can't even move his finger if he doesn't want it moved. But of course, Mother Yasoda could easily lift her son Krishna up and move him anywhere. So Krishna is moved by love. Among men, I am the monarch. A monarch means a king. So great kings such as Maharaj Yudhisthira and Maharaj Pariksit were highly righteous kings who always thought of their citizens' welfare. In the past, they were considered to be the representative of the Lord. So in the past, kings had wonderful qualities. So that's why Krishna is saying, amongst men, I am the monarch. That's not so much nowadays, is it? Krishna says, of weapons, I am the Thunderbolt. So have you ever witnessed a thunderbolt striking nearby during a storm? It's really quite frightening. Thunderbolts are very powerful. But, in reality, compared to Krishna's power, they're really not that great, are they? Among cows, I am the Surabhi. So Krishna has many cows, many Surabhi cows. And there are 4 colours of cows: white, red, black, and yellow. And there are 25 divisions of these colours, which makes a total of 100 groups of colours. And then there are 8 extra groups, according to the shapes of their heads and that. So altogether, there are 108 groups of these wonderful Surabhi cows. And Krishna would count these groups using a string of 108 jewel beads. So Krishna has his own mala beads, doesn't he, for counting the Surabhi cows. Of fishes, I am the shark. Actually, the Sanskrit word shark that they're using is not really a shark. It's even greater than a shark, but we don't have that here on this planet. So the closest we have is the shark. And really, the shark is certainly dangerous. And sometimes surfboard riders find themselves too close to a shark. If you're going to go out there in their territory, look out. But Krishna is more powerful than millions of sharks. Of flowing rivers, I am the Ganges. There are many mighty rivers, and Mother Ganges is the greatest. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 17, if you want to look it up, there is a long description of the Ganges. In brief, the Ganges River comes from the causal ocean, beyond the covering of the universe. After the water of the causal ocean leaks through a hole created by Lord Vamanadev, it flows down to Dhruva-loka and then to the 7 planets beneath Dhruva-loka. Then it is carried to the moon by millions of celestial airplanes, and then it falls to the top of Mount Meru. So in this way, the water of the Ganges finally reaches the lower planets and the peaks of the Himalayas. So this is where it comes onto this planet. And from there it flows throughout the plains of India, purifying the entire land. So the wonderful Ganges River. So Krishna is saying, of flowing rivers, I am the Ganges. Of letters, I am the letter A. So Akara is the first letter of the Sanskrit alphabet. And without the letter A, Akara, nothing can be sounded. But even for the present day English language that we all speak, A is also the first letter. How coincidental. So Krishna is the first and original Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything flows. Of seasons, I am flower-bearing spring. Of course, out of all the seasons, what is the most wonderful season? Spring. And there are many ceremonies commemorating Krishna's pastimes in spring. And the beauty of the newly blooming flowers reminds us of Radha and Krishna. So that was just a few of the verses from chapter 7 and 10, where Krishna is speaking about his opulences. Right throughout all these wonderful Vedic scriptures, there are descriptions in there showing that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Some years ago, I was speaking with an Indian gentleman, and he had been influenced, actually from the time he was quite young, to consider that Krishna was really just a demigod, not much more than a demigod sort of thing. And so he said to me, well, just give me one quote from scripture that shows that he's the supreme person, he's not a demigod. And so this is the verse that I quoted him. Now, if you were put in that situation, I think it would be really interesting for you to have some verses that you can pull up out of the grey that shows that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. But here's the verse that I quoted to him, which he very nicely accepted. Krishna says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So this was the quote that the gentleman heard, and he actually accepted it. Namaste.
Hare Haraya Namah Krishnaya Devaya Namah Hare Haraya Namah Krishnaya Devaya Namah Hare Haraya Namah Krishnaya Devaya Namah Gopala Govinda Rama Shri Madhusudana Giridhare Gopinatha Madana Mohana Gopala Hare Haraya Namah Krishnaya Devaya Namah Hare Haraya Namah Krishnaya Devaya Namah Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol.